Okay, we're on the afternoon break of day 17 of the Undercover Policing Inquiry. We've been listening to the live questioning of Doreen Lawrence. I'm joined by Heather Mendick. What do you make of what Doreen's had to say?
So it's a really difficult one because the questions she's being asked are very frustrating. And she's being asked over and over again in this last session about, was this report right? Is this report right? About meetings that she wasn't at, about a group movement for justice, which she can barely remember the name of, that she clearly didn't have much to do with at the time, and whatever she had to do with them, maybe she saw people around, but she doesn't remember it. It wasn't significant. As she says, she was like a mom, having to look after her family, having to carry the campaign on at the same time, having to work, and she just doesn't know whether these reports are true or not. And sometimes she's being read stuff and say, well, maybe this was happening, but she doesn't really know. It's kind of a frustrating thing because there are probably more important things that a witness like Doreen Lawrence could be asked, really. And so I think this is a little bit disappointing because she is one of the big names. This is one of the days which should get coverage, and yet it's not really that. I don't, for the inquiry, barristers are really doing what they need to do to get the coverage, get the publicity, get the issue spoken about, and the controversial issue that they were spying on the Lawrence campaign, that they were supporting the inquiry, feeding information to the inquiry, that they were subverting justice, that they were putting efforts into undermining a police campaign, a campaign against the police for justice from them, rather than solving the murder case. All of this stuff isn't really coming out, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, totally. It really isn't. I mean, we're having lots of questions put to her, which are very long, very detailed questions, and then her going, "I don't know, I can't help with that.
Yeah.
I don't know anything about that." Some of them, I mean, I think one of the most pertinent things that was said today, it's been revealed before, but it's one of the most interesting parts, is that the undercover police officer HN81 Dave Hagan, who was spying on Movement for Justice, was spying on the Lawrence family support group, the groups around the Lawrence family at the inquiry, that he was feeding information directly, having one-on-one meetings with Detective Inspector Richard Walden, who was feeding that information directly into the commissioner's legal team at the Stephen Lawrence inquiry. So there was a direct link of the undercover officer in the campaign to the legal team at the inquiry, which, I mean,
Yeah.
I mean, what was very annoying was that when this was put to Doreen, she went, well, I don't know anything about that, which obviously she doesn't know anything about that. I mean, she did say then that, it just seems like they're trying to cover for themselves. It feels like they're more concerned with protecting their reputation, protecting themselves from criticism, than they are with actually trying to find my son's killers, which is what they should have been doing. But yeah, it has been quite frustrating. The way in which, I think a lot of it's to do with the way in which the questions are framed. A lot of it's like, sometimes they're just asking her opinion on things, and she isn't in the mood to give opinions about things.
I think she has been through all this stuff so many times, and what she's got is very clear message to put out, which is the police should not have been doing this, they should have been doing that, and that's what she goes back to, and that's correct. But for this inquiry, it obscures some of the more interesting things because either she doesn't know about them or they don't fit with the kind of thing that she wants to put across, which is that she never got justice for her son. I don't know. It will be interesting to see how, I guess, Neville Lawrence is going to give evidence and how the different perspectives on it come over. And I guess Dwayne Brooks is going to give evidence, and we'll get a different version of the inquiry. But this is really an interesting bit of this inquiry because, first of all, it's speaking about another public inquiry, which was successful in getting justice. One where the leader of that inquiry had to move significantly. The judge in charge was kind of racist to start with and ends up being anti-racist, which is what we need admitting to do as well.
I mean,
so that way it's very interesting.
Yeah, I think it's particularly interesting because during the opening statements, Mitting said that he didn't feel that the Macpherson definition of institutional racism was pertinent to this inquiry, which is a shocking thing to say. And I think really, this is an opportunity for him to realise that it is very pertinent.
I think it depends on who the inquiry lawyer is, what comes out. So I thought yesterday the questioning was much better because there was much more chance to go into that. So, why aren't they asking Doreen Lawrence about institutional racism? That would be so much a better and more interesting thing because she has so much experience in that. She did training with the police on it. And I'd love to hear her speak about that. She would be expert on that, but they're not doing that. I think the barrister today, I'm not as impressed with the barrister yesterday who seemed to make space for other things.
Yeah, she's not having a good day.
No.
There's a few things where she's tripped up over her words. She can remember what Ripper stood for.
Yeah.
The second time she's done that, actually. Yeah, it has been a bit frustrating. She is I always feel it's very noticeable when when the lawyer talks so much more than the witness, which is very much the case, particularly this afternoon.
Yeah, I wonder if she feels like this is a big witness that she's been put in charge of, and that she's nervous and anxious, and that's coming across. And that the more she doesn't get what she expected to get, the more she's pulling back to these set questions. And maybe she hasn't got the confidence to say, well, this is not working, let's try something else, which occasionally you feel like they do. And I do feel like, particularly the stuff which is an abusive legal process, if we had one of the other barristers on the stand, would be getting very angry about that. That seems to be the one which they really get pissed off about, when you're abusing kind of forms of legal privilege, which is not quite what happened here, but it's close to what happened here, right?
It's a different area. It's not quite legal professional privilege, but certainly, disrespecting the inquiry process. It's disrespecting the chair of the inquiry by having a spy in the camp and reporting that directly through. It's quite unprecedented, that.
Yeah, and I think if David Barr was in charge, he'd feel it, because this is his little baby now, this inquiry. And I'd actually like to see him getting angry about stuff like that. And I also feel like it's a kind of weird experience as someone watching it as well, because all this stuff which, even if you weren't involved in politics at the time, you remember. And they showed us the video of with the images of the suspects, probably the murderers of Lawrence.
Definitely the murderers.
Yeah, you say that. And those images which we saw at the time of them just so aggressive and so violent,
spitting at the crowd.
Yeah, and walking past images of Stephen with disdain. And these are things which are etched into all of us in this country, right? It's become part of our national memory. And I feel like this inquiry needs to reflect that in some way, and it isn't doing that. Reflect the way that was abused in this moment of national, when we thought one thing was happening nationally, something else was happening. That actually our police force was undermining even the message the Daily Mail was sending out. And the Daily Mail got behind the Lawrences. This is what we often forget, and that was pivotal.
Yeah, crazy. It was so weird that that was that front cover, which they didn't show actually, but I shared on Twitter. Just seeing that again, the Daily Mail being on side. This is just a short break. I didn't notice all the lawyers around us going back in. We should probably get back in. Anything else you want to add?
No, keep coming down to it if you can. There's more people in today, which is great.
Yeah, it is the busiest day, I think, so far.
Yeah.
All right, thanks for joining, and we'll do another video at the end of the day. Over now.
Yeah, that's good, actually.